A warm welcome to everybody to episode 5 of Giacom's research series on how MSPs can monetize AI. And what we're doing with this webinar series is we are seeking to highlight very practical steps that our MSP partners can take to get ahead of customer demand and seize the huge opportunity in AI. Now, once again, it's been a crazy busy week in the world of AI. So, Microsoft published some more research this week. It was a very interesting bit of research that was talking to end employees in businesses. And what the research showed was it was an estimate, God knows how they worked this out, that UK business employees are saving 12 billion hours a year across the economy using AI tools, which apparently is equivalent to more than 207 billion pounds worth of time. Now, I'm not sure I've seen that come back into the economy, but it's an interesting stat. And what they're also saying is that they're using this saved time to improve their work-life balance, to develop new skills, focus on more meaningful work. It was a very heartwarming piece about the use of AI. There was no mention of the cost savings implications of that sort of thing as well. But, it was very positive. But one very interesting thing that came out of this research was when they asked employees, 71% of employees confessed to using shadow AI. So using unapproved consumer tools, which pose an extra security risk for organizations big and small. So in our series so far, we've interviewed MSPs to find out about their kind of practical journeys from first steps, baby steps, towards delivering agents and managed services and how they really start to monetize and differentiate and what they're doing to act as customer zero to innovate in their own stack to get ahead of their customer demand. And we also heard last week from Microsoft themselves, Microsoft talking to us about the very cutting edge of agents as businesses move towards becoming frontier firms. So we thought it would be really appropriate today to turn to the subject of cybersecurity. It's something that MSPs are obviously hugely concerned about, hugely interested in how they position this to their customers and build services around it. And I can think of nobody better than to turn to one of Giacom's favorite cybersecurity vendors, Acronis, and I'm to give us a great lens on and bring security expertise around this. So to give us a real view of security and monetization around AI. So Gaidar, thank you so much for joining us today. Sorry about the very long introduction, but would you introduce yourself and also tell us a bit about Acronis?
Thank you, Nathan. Yeah, sure. So I'm Gaidar. I'm with Acronis for over 12 years. I'm currently a president, but I had a wide variety of different positions, and I think most exciting one was running technical support for the company. That's how I met a lot of partners and learned everything there is to learn about a product. And Acronis is, I guess, doesn't require a lot of introduction, but for those who don't know a lot about us, Acronis used to be a backup company, but about 10 years ago, we evolved into what we call a cyber protection company when we integrated data protection, backup disaster recovery, with cybersecurity and endpoint management. And our vision was that we want to provide the tools that will increase reliability of the system that MSPs are running and also provide more productivity. So they will be able to handle issues faster. They will spend less time managing the protection, multiple agents, multiple consoles. So that's where we are. And our goal was always to increase reliability and productivity. And that's what we are doing now.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for that, Gaidar. And I'll attest to that, actually, that what we're seeing quite a lot of our MSP partners doing is really consolidating down their security stack now and trying to move from having hundreds of vendors to really trying to focus in on just one or two, consolidating the vendors down to make their whole operation far more simple. And then I think being a lot more authoritative with their customers to say, no, I'm not going to do what you want me to do in cyber. If you want me to do a proper job, take what I'm really good at and use my depth and my breadth. And that's what we're seeing. We're getting some real traction with the Acronis stack with. So listen, it's brilliant to have you with us today. So first question, can you bring us up to speed with your view and context on the real cybersecurity risks associated with AI? What we've heard when we've been talking with MSPs is this thing about shadow IT risk is definitely something, but there's also, of course, the risk that's posed by bad guys using AI tooling to really increase the volume and the surface vector of threats generally. So can we take the shadow IT risk first, because that seems to be very pertinent. Microsoft employee survey saying that 71% of end users are using consumer AI tools at work. What's your lens on it?
Shadow IT is something that corporations were trying to fight with for years and years, and it's unavoidable. When I started my first corporate job, actually at Microsoft 20 years ago, Microsoft was fighting with shadow IT, even inside Microsoft. And it's really hard because you always have some great tools that are not available through corporate IT. And now with AI, it became even a bigger problem because you can find a tool that solves specific problem for you. And there are so many great tools, and people just want to explore it. They want to try it, and they see the impact on their productivity. They get excited and they keep using the tools. But there is a huge challenge that associated with shadow IT. It's not only that you use some unapproved tool that is just, not part of the corporate portfolio, but you may disclose some private data. It may leak just because you are interacting with a tool that may not be as secure as the tools that were approved. You can also have you get in trouble because those tools itself can be attacked. So you may be using a nice AI tool that automate your productivity, provides you with perfect automated workflow, and then somebody hacks in and get access to your data or to your workflow or even to your system. And employees are not thinking about it. They don't think that the little tiny app that they just installed and helping them to process their email can actually be a huge security risk. And the other thing that is also important is that fighting with shadow IT is extremely complicated. So what can you do if you're an MSP? How can you prevent that? You can track all the requests to all the websites, all the API endpoints, and block them. That's one way to go. So you can prevent people from accessing most of the tools, but they show up all the time. And in reality, it's impractical just to block everything. You block ChatGPT, they'll start using Claude. You block Claude, they start using Grok. And the thing is, the only the real tool that helps here, based on the experience of most of the MSPs I'm talking to, is the education for the end customer. So you educate the customer on how to achieve certain things, which tools to use, and those tools that are approved tools or they're at least verified by the MSP or by the corporate IT, and that is probably the best way to do it. And then the other way is to provide the tools, the authorized tools. So many corporations, they have their own internal LLM models and they run them. So it is within the corporate network. It has access to all the corporate data, but it doesn't have any access to anything outside, or whatever connection to the outside world is monitored, and the leakage of data is prevented.
I mean, a
So
very real
yeah,
example of that, Gita, is M365 Chat is effectively your own version of Chat GPT, but running inside your organization, right? Why on earth wouldn't an MSP make sure that every single one of their end user customers has M365 Chat? It's one way of going, isn't it? And educate on that and help them to use it properly, and then educate them that actually these consumer apps they're using perhaps not a good idea. It's a really easy baby first step, perhaps.
yeah. The main issue with that is in many of those tools, like you can use ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot, and many of those tools, they are capable to provide what you need, but they will always be tools that are specialized. So something that's running on top of ChatGPT, but it specializes in producing marketing content or sales pitches or processing your emails. In reality, in the nutshell, it's the same ChatGPT, and all those tools are doing, they're just sending the predefined prompts to ChatGPT. And for a lot of customers, a lot of consumers, it looks like, oh, I have a tool that will do the same thing I can do with ChatGPT, but much faster. I don't have to think about it. I just upload my file and everything happens there. It does look exciting because there's a tool. I don't have to think. It will do whatever I need it to do. But then those tools, as I mentioned before, they're open to being attacked, or there's a kind of popular way to attacking those tools is doing the prompt injection or stealing the data that is sent to those tools. So there's so many security risks associated with whatever you use. So I guess I would go back to the advice that most of the MSPs I'm talking to are giving to their customers is learn the tools that you need to have for your business, have the proper security training. And I cannot emphasize more that proper security awareness training is important. It shouldn't be a checkbox. Like a lot of people do it as a checkbox because cyber insurance requires it or the corporate IT requires it, but it should be a proper training. So people need to realize when they're at risk versus when they're not at risk.
Yeah, look, I think that's absolutely spot on. I've heard that resonate as well. And of course, there's been more news stories this week. I was in the car yesterday listening to the radio. There was a case on the radio of a barrister who'd submitted a very detailed case recommendation into the courts. And he was ripped apart because it turned out that he'd quoted 12 references that did not exist. And of course, he'd used a ChatGPT or one of the consumer apps to do it, and it hallucinated loads of the reference points,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is a huge reputational issue, right? So this all goes back to this point really about education and training being of fundamental importance. That the weak point here is always the human.
yeah, absolutely. And it's great that you mentioned this example, because what happens now is that people, when they type a prompt to, let's say, ChatGPT, quite often they say, find credible references, provide statistics. And what ChatGPT does, it shows something like, I don't know, 70% of employees are using shadow IT, and they provide a link, but people don't check the link. And what happens is sometimes, rarely, but it happens, the data or the statement that is presented is actually not connected to what the link is about. But a lot of people think there's a reference, there's a link, so probably is a valid data source,
Looks
and
credible.
people don't
Yeah,
validate. Yeah, looks credible.
yeah,
The same thing like with news, like, all those stories where people believe in things that are not really happening. It's because they're not validating the sources. And
yeah,
proper cybersecurity awareness training actually starts with explaining the sources of information, where it's coming from, how to validate the source of an email, how to understand if you are at the correct website. And part of the training is also to validate the information that you receive. So you
yeah.
shouldn't trust whatever you get from any kind of tool automatically. You have to validate it.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, many of our MSPs already are training organisations as part of their core propositions. They don't need to change anything really, and there are plenty of platforms out there. We carry a platform called USecure that's all about delivering security training, compliance training, all that sort of stuff out to users. Yeah, you can build really bespoke courses for your end customer to make sure that you nail that side of things. That's definitely a monetization opportunity. Okay, well, let's move on. So shadow IT is one side. The other side, of course, is what we hear about how, all the bad guys are using AI machine learning to just really speed up and ramp up the volume of attacks. What can we do about this? What's your kind of view on how we should think about that as MSPs?
Yeah, funny enough, it again comes back to the education, because most of the attacks in reality are coming through phishing. So you get an email, click on the link, go to the website, do something, and provide your credential to the bad guy. Actually, we know a lot of cases where bad guys use AI to do the vulnerability assessment or discovery of zero-day vulnerabilities, and then creating the malware that would leverage that vulnerability. But this is just a tiny fraction of all of the breaches, because majority of them are happening still the same old way. It's somebody tricking somebody into doing something. So phishing emails are getting better and better, but just because AI can provide a good template for you. And the worst part of it is that you can automate the process of creating emails, creating websites. Just yesterday, like maybe, yeah, it was like last night, I got an email from American Express, and it was perfectly done email. And if you click on the link, you go to the perfectly done website. Everything looks amazing. Of course, if you don't check the domain name, but it was so realistic, and the content was realistic. So it was just amazing. And what happens now is that people receive emails that look like the credible services that they use. They get an email supposedly from their bank, and the bank tells them your account, whatever, gets interest accrued. You just need to do this, this, and this to receive it, or something like that. And a lot of people will react to it because they wouldn't check the actual account number. They wouldn't check any details. They just provide their credentials and they're gone. And that happens all the time. And the thing is, what AI made possible for bad guys is to automate at scale and make it better, 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 and learn from the reactions of people. But then the other thing is that stealing data is relatively easy if you trick somebody into providing the credentials or uploading some file somewhere. But processing the data was hard. So finding details about your network infrastructure, analyzing logs from your machine, it was hard. Now with AI, it actually happens much faster. So for the bad guys, doing the intelligence on the system that they're trying to penetrate became much, much easier. So AI made them more productive. The same way AI is making MSPs more productive, it's making the bad guys more productive. And there's the one thing we can do about it is to continue to deploy the tools that would allow us to block the attacks, prevents the attacks, roll back to the previous state when if something is broken. And then it's also important to have a copy of the data, good old backup, that can be used for forensics. So after the attack, an attack will happen one day or the other. After the attack, take that data and analyze what actually happened. So how did they get in? What did they take? What did they change? Because that becomes even more important than just blocking the attack. Because if you stop the attack, it doesn't guarantee that it will not be repeated, or you don't even know what actually happened to the customer infrastructure.
Yeah, yeah. So if you look at a standard, horrible term, standard, but your common or garden MSP that's delivering infrastructure services and cybersecurity services and an IT help desk to a customer, that kind of classic offering. And you think about all of these threats and these things that are happening. It sounds like what you're saying is that this isn't a change in business model. This is an evolution of your capability. But what you need to do is make sure you stay ahead of this, keep investing in the right tool sets to better respond to this, keep investing in the training and do all those sorts of things. What I'm wondering, Gaidar, is because obviously we've had the emergence of the MSSP model, where you get very specialist cybersecurity businesses. And I haven't seen MSSPs really play into the small business so much in the UK, very much playing into the mid-market, into large enterprise, and into the sort of more compliant governmental environments. But do you think that MSPs in their standard offering can maintain everything that an SMB needs in terms of their cyber essentials and keeping them safe in today's world?
Yeah. It's just a matter of using the right tool. So to your point about MSSPs, the reason MSPs need MSSPs is because not everybody has the expertise or time to handle all the security incidents. And not many people want to wake up at 2 a.m. on Saturday because there's a breach somewhere. So you want to outsource it to someone who really knows how to deal with it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the reason MSSPs or MDR services are not prevalent in the smaller businesses and that segment of a smaller businesses is because it's just extra cost, and customers are notoriously not good at paying more. And what we hearing, and we hear a lot of that, like a lot of small businesses, they try to reduce their IT bill, and they would say, hey, we don't need backup for endpoints, so we need just basic security. That's something, just fill in the checkbox for the cyber insurance. But in reality, if they don't do that, if they don't have protection for the endpoints, if they don't have backup for endpoints, they will get in trouble. So at some point, they'll get attacked by ransomware, encrypted, and will not be able to recover. But even worse is that if you're really in that industry that requires low downtime, you have to be always on. You have to protect every device. And we know that customers, even knowing that they have to keep the uptime, they have to be always available, would still try to reduce the bill, leads to trade-offs by MSPs. And then coming back to MSSPs, so customers are willing to pay. So what are the options that MSPs have? One of the options is to provide some basic services by themselves. And even larger MSPs working with MSSPs with larger accounts, we see it's happening that they take the tier one support from the MSSPs, so they try to handle some of the incidents to reduce the cost.
Yeah, very common in the UK. Exactly that.
Yeah, absolutely. And for that, you just need the right tools. And we at Acronis, what we were looking at as building this integrated platform where you have EDR, XDR, backup, disaster recovery in one protection plan. So whatever you deploy the agent to endpoint, a server, virtual machine, they just enable the protection plan, and you have security and backup that endpoint. And it provides you with basic tools to do the analysis. And now with AI, we can automate it in a way that you don't have to be really a security expert and go through everything in there. You will get the like natural language explanation for what has happened and suggestion of the next steps and next action to take. So in the process of handling an incident, you have AI explaining you what's happening, and you learn from this. So that's the way for a technician to improve their skills when they work with that system.
We're using generative AI to democratize some of that much more complex capability that would have been in the realm of the MSSP, and enabling MSPs to be able to deliver those services effectively for small businesses. It's the way that we can get it to a price point that's affordable for a smaller business, I guess. That's really interesting. It's a great segue, actually. So you speak to MSPs all the time. I'm really interested in what approaches you're seeing MSPs taking, how they're leveraging AI to drive both their top line and their bottom line growth. And we've seen kind of two sides to this, really. One side we've seen is MSPs very much acting as a customer zero, so grabbing hold of the opportunity, implementing various different types of AI into their own business, into their tech stack, into their productivity services, to make their business better, and make their customer service better, lower their price points. But we're also seeing them, of course, then reflecting that in their value proposition and their differentiation out to their customers. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that. Maybe start with the customer zero thing. What are you seeing in terms of MSPs investing and using AI in their stack to improve the way they deliver services to their customers?
I talk to MSPs every day. There are very few days in my in my life when I'm not talking to our partners, and I can tell you for maybe the last 6 months, I maybe seen one or two MSPs that are not using AI. Almost everybody has AI in one way or the other implemented in their workflows, starting from just having a chat GPT or Claude or something open side by side with whatever system they use, just to get some additional insights or steps to remediate certain situations, or even creating customer emails.
Shadow
So
IT.
everybody's
Shadow
yeah, most MSP owners
They're helpful.
recommend that their
Yeah, of
technicians.
course.
They actually force them to do it, and a lot of MSPs making the next step. They integrate the AI with their systems. The very basic thing that people do is creating the summaries of tickets and then validating the summaries of those tickets after you process that. That's actually interesting. Interesting case, a specific case, is when you deliver something for a customer and customer submitted a very long ticket with lots of requests. If you have to ship a device with pre-installed software on it and you forgot about something or you missed something, that's a huge issue because there's a shipping delay. A customer gets the device, they send it back, you have to reinstall it. It's a huge reputational risk as well. So a lot of MSPs actually implement AI to check, okay, what was requested? Here's the summary. And after the ticket is completed, AI will summarize, okay, what was provided, and then compare and say, hey, did you install whatever tool that customer was asking for? Simple case, but
Like a
saves a lot of
compliance
money for.
check of
Yeah,
entitlement. Yeah.
yeah. So like summary of tickets is number one thing. And then the second thing that people really hate is customer communication. So they use AI and predefined templates to create some emails explaining what has happened. And probably the third most kind of most useful scenario is creating reports for monthly meetings, QBRs, weekly meetings, whatever they have their customers, because it's kind of a boring job, right? So they just want to automate it, and a lot of people do that.
And
And
techies
some of
really
them,
don't want to do the report writing, do they? That's
yeah,
classic.
yeah, they create something
Documentation.
once and then tell, hey, AI, just keep documenting it and keep
Yeah.
creating summaries of whatever was done. So this is like the type of activity that most technicians don't like documenting what they do. So we actually at Acronis, we are somewhere around end of this year, we will release functionality that will allow to analyze the remote session and automatically log it. So AI will create a summary of the remote session, add it to the ticket, so you don't have to worry about it. And also you can use it to train your junior technicians. So those type of automation are kind of everywhere.
Yeah,
And what
tapping away at efficiency. Yeah.
yeah, and I assume that every vendor out there, every MSP out there will be doing that
Yeah, look,
because
we had a
yeah,
so an interview I did a couple of weeks ago with a chap called Lewis Lydiard, who's in one of our MSPs Tech Care, had built Copilot Studio agents to define and run all of their standard operating procedures. So customer calls in, backup problem, or there's a malware breach or something. What procedure do I follow? And just chat into M365 chat, Studio agent comes up and make sure that you follow the standard operating procedures, which means that you're potentially a very inexperienced tier one engineer can absolutely make sure that they've followed the process all the way through, which he's saying is pretty transformational in terms of
Yeah.
creating structure, efficiency, better customer service.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing at Acronis, because we realize that everybody will be doing it. So we want to be there as well, but also we want to make it in a way that we will fully automate the process. So back in the day, we started with cyber protection, where we were telling people you have one agent, one console, one protection plan, so you have more productivity, it's more reliable. Now we leverage AI on top of it, saying, okay, now we can actually help you to resolve the tickets. So what we're building right now, and we'll be actually talking about it during MSP Global event, is the what we call autonomous cyber protection. So basically, you get a ticket or you get an alert. AI creates a summary of it. And then AI can automatically process the ticket and either provide you with a summary of the resolution or provide you a way to approve it, depending on the level of, let's say, automation tolerance at the MSP. So it will be a journey to fully deploy it. So we will be adding piece by piece different components of it. But the main component will be providing the summary of a ticket and providing recommendation to the technician, and then technician can execute those steps for remediation or whatever ticket resolution from the system, and system will learn from it. And then when we accumulate enough data on what steps helped in which particular case, we can fully automate it. So I see it as a automation journey when we think about autonomous cyber protection, and the main benefit of it is that you bring the productivity back to the human being, because instead of spending 60%, 70% of their time just handling tickets and reactively responding to issues, they will be able to focus on developing their skills, learning new tools, guiding customers on deploying tools that would actually improve the productivity of the customer. So we want to take this boring part of the job, that is protection.
It's such a great idea, because when I've been speaking to some of the more forward-thinking MSPs, I guess, who've really got into Gen AI early, they've been innovating those sorts of things themselves. So they've been looking at their own workflows and they've been saying, where can I create agents? Where can I create efficiency? Where can I do RPA? What you're saying is, out of box, you're going to be able to come to Acronis and you're going to have built in effect a whole suite of agents and automations that are going to deliver all of these standard tasks and again, it's about democratizing that capability to the MSP, right, to make them more and more efficient and effective. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you think about it, the typical problem for an MSP now is first competition, because everybody can compete globally now. You don't have to be present. You can remotely support customers. Then more efficient, more effective MSPs, they're able to provide lower price. So again, they increase the competition. But then the customer demands are growing, and you have this more complicated infrastructure. You have more tickets. So your techs are constantly working on processing those tickets. They're just burning out and leaving. So on one hand, you have competition. On the other hand, you have your technician burnout. So you have to do something about it. And my view, and it's based on multiple discussions with MSPs, analysts, media, and just customers, is that the MSPs who are not using AI tools or not automating as much as they could with AI, they'll be just irrelevant. They go out of business. They won't be able to match the pricing. They won't be able to match the quality of service. So it's something that you have to do. And there's one thing that kind of slows down that automation, is that people still cautious on using AI for automation. They're afraid, what if the AI will make mistakes? So that is something that we had in mind when we're designing our autonomous cyber protection vision, is that we have this native integration of backup. So before doing an action, we can create a snapshot. And if the action has the undesirable outcome, we can roll back. So our AI can be more proactive, more aggressive. I love the word. People hate it, but I like it. More aggressive AI. But then if it makes a mistake, you can roll back. So that's I think the main difference of what we're doing and what everybody else is doing or will be doing.
Yeah, well, that sounds amazing. I mean, it's very interesting, actually. I was just thinking there about how you're not really talking there about reducing cost and removing people. What you're actually doing is you're talking there about improving customer service, improving business value delivery through using the tools to enable the MSP to scale. That's actually the biggest issue we see for MSPs, is they've got to a size, they've got a certain number of customers, and the complexity gets to a point where they can't grow without affecting their profitability. And actually,
Yeah.
that ability to scale through that has to be related to how you use tooling and how you use AI. I mean, we've all heard this, the stats before. I think that in an MSP's overhead, 90% of that cost is staffing, right? Only 10% is tooling. So presumably that's exactly where you're coming from here. You're going to enable that MSP. There's no way they're going to get rid of a person who's skilled as a technician. What you want them to do is more useful work and not the turgid stuff
Yeah.
here, so that they can then build scale to grab the opportunity.
Yeah, what I like about the developed markets like UK or United States is that MSPs understand this. They know
Yeah,
that most of the
yeah,
cost is labor.
yeah,
Actually, in less developed markets, people still fight for reducing the software expenses. And when I'm having those conversations with somebody and I would tell him, hey, okay, what's your cost structure? And it will show me the cost structure and say 90% labor, 5 or 6% software. And I would tell them, okay, if you consolidate all your tools on our platform, whatever platform you prefer, and you'll save like 20% of your software cost, it will be 1% of your total cost. It's nothing. But if you improve
but
productivity of
the
your
impact.
technician,
Oh, yeah,
impact is huge,
yeah,
because if
yeah,
you
yeah,
just do simple math, if you increase productivity like by 100%, like double the productivity, it means that you can onboard more customers or provide more services. So direct calculation, double productivity is 5 times the margin.
yeah,
And then it's like mind blowing for a lot of people. They would say, oh gosh, I never thought about it like this. I never thought I can onboard more customers with the same team. And then on the technician side, a lot of people are afraid that AI will replace them because they hear all those news about the big tech companies firing thousands of people because they replace them with AI. Sadly, it does happen in some companies, and we can talk about it, the reasons why it happened. But when we think about MSP, it's usually much smaller team, and they actually want to grow. They want to onboard more customers, so there's no need to replace somebody. They would rather do the training and do the cross training on different disciplines and have that person to become more of a strategic advisor, more of an
yeah,
account
yeah,
manager, while still retaining a lot of technical capability. And then that person can help the business to grow. So
yeah,
AI will not replace technicians. Technicians with AI will replace technicians without AI. And
yeah,
MSPs
yeah.
using AI will replace those who are not using AI.
Yeah, look, I think that's a great summary. I mean, if we look across the MSP community in the UK, they're not opportunity constrained. They're all growing at double digit. The problem is they're not profitable or not profitable enough, and that's the challenge. Plenty of opportunities to do better and better things for SMBs, but they can't scale. If we can solve that problem, that's brilliant. Love that. Now, listen. I've had enough of your time. That's been really generous of you. Can I just ask you to give us a bit of a tease? You've talked about autonomous cyber protection. That sounds amazing. Looking forward to finding out more about that. But just give us a little bit of a flavour, if you would, of what the vision is for Acronis, what we can expect over the next year or so as you continue your journey to make things easier for MSPs to operate and scale.
Yeah, our vision is simple. We want to help MSPs to increase their productivity. So this autonomous cyber protection is the continuation of the same story we had for the last 10 plus years. It is all about making people more productive, because more productive person has more time to do other things, but also it improves the reliability of the service, because if you have time, you make fewer mistakes. And a lot of major issues are happening from the mistakes made by the technicians. So that's simple. Without going into more details, it's just improving productivity, dramatically improving productivity. And it's not that it will be a significant advantage of those who will use it. Sadly, it will be a disadvantage not to use it because, again, competition, technician burnout, there are fewer people going to work for MSPs now, because with all those AI tools, you can build products, you can build automation, you can build services. So younger generation of IT professionals, they're looking into some other forms of delivering value to the customers. So it is harder to hire people. So I think it is a necessity. And I don't want to scare anybody, but if you're not using the tools that improve productivity of your technician today, in a year from now, it'll be too late.
Yeah. Listen, that's been really wonderful to have time to chat with you and to hear your advice to the MSPs out there. So fantastic! Huge thank you from me, Gaidar. If I can, just before we go, I just wanted to give you a bit of a preview of episode 6 of our series. So for episode 6, we're going to turn internally into Giacom. We've chatted to MSPs, we've talked to Microsoft, we've talked to Acronis. And the final stage of our journey, we're going to go back into our product teams in Giacom. So we've got product teams in Giacom who've been helping partners to enable themselves in, skills in Azure, shifting customers' data and workloads into the cloud, helping them to build cybersecurity, helping them to implement Copilot. And we're going to be talking with Angela Pawar, who's one of our product leads on Copilot, who's built out and is proposing a framework to help MSPs to think about that journey to becoming a frontier firm, starting, if you haven't started yet, how do you start? How do you become customer zero? What are the steps you can take to build your value proposition so you really get yourself onto this journey as you move towards helping customers with their AI journey? So look out for that one. Gaidar, thank you very much. Huge privilege to chat to you today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Nathan.